Welcome to episode 42 of Rubbish Talk with myself, Alistair Meldrum.
And myself, Jane Bond.
Lots to go through today, Jane, but we have our guest today is Elspeth Watson from Glasgow City Council. More about Elspeth later on. But first of all, I've actually done my homework from last episode because I promised we would look at the circular economy bill and see what was contained in there. And we do actually have there's a little blog, rather than run through, there's quite a lot of detail there, some good stuff in there. We're just going to share that on our Rubbish Talk blog. So if anybody's interested, not had a look yet, we're happy to provide a wee summary and a link to the circular economy bill. So although I've done my homework, that's all we're going to say about that because we've got lots of other stuff to talk about.
Yeah, we have something from CIWM News, Chartered Institute of Waste Management. They've published a white paper which calls for extended producer responsibility for batteries and products containing batteries and a targeted deposit return scheme. So again, I mean, we didn't get the deposit return scheme for cans and plastics, but hopefully we might get something for batteries.
Yeah, I've not had a chance to look at the CIWM report, but I know I did get somebody sent me the tonnages, the battery, the current producer responsibility for batteries at the moment, and we're somehow managing to recycle like something like 500% of batteries that are allegedly placed in the market.
That's clever.
The reality is we're actually only recycling about 20% of the batteries that are placed in the market, and it's all to do with this. When the producers put the stuff on the market, they can estimate the weight, and when they recycle the materials, they can estimate the weight. And obviously they estimate high at the start and low at the end, or vice versa. I can't remember which way it goes. So I think there's a bit of work needing done by government agencies to actually have a look at why the current producer responsibility is not working before we try and change the system and put something new in.
But yeah. I mean, I think the thing is, it's making it easy for people, isn't it? It's what do you do with your batteries? You take them out of your thing and you store them for a while, and then you think, right, okay, I need to remember them when I go down to Lidl or Sainsbury's or whatever to be able to take them with me to go and put them in that little plastic thingamabob to take them away.
But if we're currently way over reporting how many batteries we're recycling, then there's no incentive, and there's no, it destroys any finance. And if you're trying to put in a recycling business, you can't get finance because at the moment we're showing we're recycling loads of batteries. So in theory, we're saying there's none left to recycle, but in reality, there's lots left to recycle.
Yes, so, it's all about statistics, isn't it?
There's people,
use everything with numbers.
Yeah, there's people out there that know quite a bit more than me about this, and I would love to have them on if anybody wants to volunteer and tell us what's really going on with the producer responsibility, particularly in batteries. I'd love to hear from you.
And make it simple as well.
Absolutely.
I'm going back on. Do you remember we had Scott Butler on from Material Focus? I think it was episode 15, and he was talking about, I think he was talking about vapes at the time, but he shared something on LinkedIn about a great cable challenge, and it's almost all of us have unwanted broken cables clogging up our drawers or have binned a flimsy cable when it broke. So it's kind of, all these cables have got precious metals in them and stuff like that, and they could be recovered and recycled. And there's a great cable challenge, a UK-wide challenge to recycle 1 million cables in the run-up to International E-Waste Day on the 14th of October. And they're looking for local communities, charities, community groups, retailers, schools, universities across the UK who can actually, be able to take these electrical collections in and then be able to get rid of it. And we had one a while back, didn't we, Alistair, in our office, and the amount of stuff everybody brought in, and it was Bruce McLean from CCL who came and collected it, and we talked about it on the podcast we had with him. I remember saying that I had so many cables everywhere, and I put a load in and I found even more. So definitely perhaps we can have a little bit of a amnesty in our office again.
I think
possibly.
we could manage that, and I think I've already got a bag that I've started at home. I've started filling it with bits and pieces. Scott Butler's posts, I regularly share some of the stuff he puts out, with some of the information he's putting out about vapes and disposable electronics is important, and they do have the recycling finder that they're quite keen to get councils to point in their direction. I know some of the authorities in Scotland are linking through to the finder, so it's not just, conventionally you think of, recycling sites and so on, but like shops, curries, people like that also provide a take back point for waste electricals. So, and they're quite good at signposting these sites. If you've not had a look at it, I'm sure we can dig out the link and put it on the show notes for people.
Yeah, she's making it easy, isn't it? How do you do that? How do you, if you're not supposed to put it in your bin, where do you take it to?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have Hubbub, who we interviewed Alec Robinson from Hubbub in episode 25. So they were looking at really good things for tackling littering and just awareness about environmental and waste management issues. So they've launched a new website to help local authorities, other organisations combat litter using tried and tested ideas. So in my view, anything that can cut down on littering is to be welcomed.
Yeah, absolutely. And the next one, I suppose, this is just the worst type of littering, the fly tipping. Is a guy who has been jailed. Devon, sentenced to 32 months for dumping asbestos waste, that's the title, but when you read it, I think it was 12,000 tonnes of controlled waste, mixed construction and demolition waste deposited on land designed as a floodplain, and including that was contaminated with asbestos and all sorts of stuff. He was 32 months in prison and ordered to pay over £200,000 as part of a Proceeds of Crime Act. So, he burned some, all that kind of stuff. It's saying here the investigation, hundreds of thousands of pounds. It would cost at least 2.5 million to remediate the site. So
it's back to showing crime pays, Jane.
I know.
Because the disposal cost on 12,000 tonnes of materials 1.8 million. So as we proceeds of crime, okay, he's having to spend some time in prison, but we need to get better at finding in accordance with the crime. But it's good to see a successful prosecution. So
he received a 2-year suspended sentence in 2016 for doing the same thing. And you're like,
that
really?
sums up.
Well,
anyway, while we're on about rants, I'm back on back on vapes. So some poor person on my LinkedIn, it was a waste operator actually, and I can't honestly remember who it was, posted up a picture of a pile of vapes, and it was quite a substantial pile of vapes, but probably hundreds if not thousands after the end of a shift of processing recycled material. And it's quite interesting. There's a whole heap of comments. One of the comments I put up was, there we go, the waste industry, paying for other people's problems, sort of thing. But there's obviously quite a lot of people not from the waste sector, and they were very much on, well, the waste sector needs to deal with it. And we're like, well, maybe not. Maybe the people that are putting these things in the market need to deal with it. So it's quite interesting how that, we need to change it. And what I would love to see, and maybe the waste sector needs to get together. Maybe the waste sector needs to start taking prosecution out against waste vape producers for not complying with their statutory regulations to provide take back. That might make them sit up and listen. But then you need to get organisations together to do that. But maybe CISA, CRWM, all these organisations come together and get somebody to take a case against them and force their hand to actually do what they're meant to be doing. Because there's lots of vapes will be produced before the ban. The ban's still some way off.
Yes, they'll be all stockpiling them, won't they?
Yeah.
So we've got a few bits of Albion news as well. We had a picture on there just from Susan, our training manager now. She came on and put a photograph of her new brown bin from East Renfrewshire, which we looked at it and went, really? That's a bit flimsy, that. I don't know how long that's going to last. Yes, it wasn't the best quality of bins, to be fair. So I don't quite know how long that's going to last. A cheap one.
Well, I remember in South Ayrshire, the new bins that have been issued over the last few years are particularly flimsy. And if you walk down some of the back lanes, they're either broken or their lids are missing. And I had lots of conversations with South Ayrshire about it. And there's some of to a certain extent, their hands are tied. The procurement makes them go for the cheapest bin. What the companies do is they offer a guarantee, a replacement, but quite often what they do is just change company after a few years and then never honour their guarantee. So if we're actually really looking, some of these councils, well, lots of the councils are buying thousands of these things. And I know my original South Ayrshire bin, I've had for 20 odd years, and it's still as good as the day it was bought. So if we're really looking at sustainability, resource use, we need to have a think about procurement policies. And maybe what councils need to be doing is actually, rather than asking for guarantees, they maybe need to be testing some of these products before they actually buy them. Let's do a destruction test on them. If they don't meet the standard, then don't buy them. So there's a challenge to waste management officers out there if you're buying thousands of bins.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I've had my grey bin since I moved into the house, and that people had it before, and I've been there since, well, nearly 25 years now. So, and that's a good quality, solid bin. But the ones you get recently are a bit, definitely flimsy, aren't they?
A bit flimsy. Yeah. And then the other big Albion news is we have done a share issue to all staff. So back in just before COVID, we issued shares to the existing staff at the time. Over time, people have left, people have joined. So we had almost half of the staff had shares, half didn't. So we've just issued a share investment plan that's approved by HMRC. So come the 1st of August, every member of staff will have a share of Albion Environmental. And hopefully they're all going to work really hard, and I can get to my beach pad in the Bahamas and retire.
We always work hard, Alistair.
Absolutely.
And added to that, we now know our colleague Craig Chandler is listening to podcasts, because we've got a Falkland Islands listener now, and we're assuming that he's out there banging the drum for Rubbish Talk out in the Falkland Islands. And now we have 52 countries overall that have listened to our podcasts, which is, we're going global.
Listeners from 52 countries, eh? And interestingly, Craig's role in the Falkland Islands is focused on health and safety, but many of our listeners would be really surprised to know he's already started advising them on waste management practices, and they've actually got some waste that built up for a number of years. He's trying to give them advice in terms of how to handle properly. So.
Oh well, they're in the best of hands, aren't they?
Absolutely. And I think Jane, that's us, apart from introduction to Elspeth Watson. So Elspeth is a trainer at Glasgow City Council. I've known Elspeth for a good number of years now, and she's the most amazing, positive and inspirational person. And we should all have an Elspeth working someplace in our offices, and trying to train and encourage people just to better themselves, basically. So over to myself, Jane and Elspeth.
Hi Elspeth, good afternoon and welcome to Rubbish Talk. We are going to give you a number of questions. It's not a test or anything like that, so don't worry about it. All we want to do is chat, find out about you, find out about what you do work-wise, and how you got into what you did and how that relates to waste. So that's a task for today. So to start off with, I kind of think it's probably one of those interview questions, isn't it? Can you tell us who you currently work for and a bit of background about the organisation? So it's basically just a chat about what you do and who you work for. Elspeth.
Okay, well, so I'm Elspeth Watson, and I'm a training instructor with Glasgow City Council. I've worked for the council since 1990. Came in for 2 days as a temp, and then
never looked back.
Never left.
30 something years later, that's right. So I've been very fortunate to do lots of jobs that I've really enjoyed, and I love working for the local authority and feeling that I'm making a difference in Glasgow. I'm a training instructor for the department that's called Neighbourhood, Regeneration and Sustainability. And most of the training that we do is for parks, roads and cleansing. So working with the operative staff that are out there doing the essential day-to-day work. So the work that I do in training is the customer service training. I do health and safety training, induction for new staff that are coming to work with us. We also work with apprentices. So we've got a number of apprenticeships from civil engineers, street lighting technicians, through to apprenticeships, the staff that are working in the parks doing horticulture. And also we've been doing the sustainable resource management. The apprenticeship is called Frontline Environmental Services, with staff that were working in the cleansing department. So my job's quite varied. That you can imagine there's lots of organisation and to get things, whether it's like recruitment. So just now that's what we're in the middle of, is we've advertised vacancies for apprentices, and so we're at the stage of interviewing and then going through the HR checks to get people started. And so just now our department employs about 3,000 people. So we're responsible for delivering services that keep Glasgow a beautiful place to live. And I think that's why when you asked me to do the rubbish talk, I was like, what's this? What's involved in this? And I looked at it and I listened and I thought, this is actually good, because a lot of people maybe don't really think about, what happens. They put the bin out, once a week, and they don't think about what happens to it and the consequences of what they're doing. So I think it's good to be able to, talk to and maybe share with others, what does happen, and also the responsibilities, but also the jobs that are within waste, because there's lots of jobs that are involved in waste, and lots of really good jobs. It's not just maybe necessarily doing street cleansing or a binman, although these jobs are vital and essential. There are other specialist jobs and different maybe better paid jobs that you can aspire to. So I think it's quite an exciting time to be in this type of industry and looking at the opportunities that are out there.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got quite a lot of interviews coming through for modern apprentices. What kind of thing are you looking for in your modern apprentices? What are you when you're interviewing them, what's your sort of criteria for taking on people?
Yeah, so you would think qualifications would be really important, but not necessarily, because some people have maybe great qualifications, but they don't have common sense.
Yeah,
and particularly in this job, common sense is so important, because safety is paramount, and that is everything. And you can't get a qualification in that, and you can't teach that. Somebody, having the right attitude, when taking their time and watching what's happening, and also taking responsibility. So the kind of the qualities that we're looking for in people are the young people that want to learn, and that are hungry for an opportunity to learn and to be able to develop skills and gain qualifications. If anybody's done any kind of similar work, maybe some people have done Princess Trust projects where there's been volunteering, or maybe at school they've been involved in the school garden and doing projects there, or the Countryside Rangers run some really good projects the weekends and through the school holidays. So maybe some young people have been involved in those that have help them to see the benefit of the environment and what they're doing. So people that have got experience though in doing something, or maybe just doing their own garden, helping out in their own garden though. But we've got one apprentice just now who just loves collecting rubbish.
Oh, right,
He
okay, well,
just,
yeah, I would love
That's what
that.
we need more of them,
We
Elspeth.
need more
yeah,
of them.
he just loves. He gets great pride from going round, with the bin bag and just picking up the rubbish and making the area that he's working in look better. Yeah, so that's really, and I think yourselves. I mean, look, if you think back to 30 years ago, when you were leaving school, did any of us think we were going to be in the jobs we're in today? That
No, we talk about that with a lot of people, and no, we don't really,
yeah,
do we?
that's right.
So, I mean, we did the Albion did, and I did a lot of the training for the SQA qualification, sustainable resource management, and a lot of them were the guys on the bins and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed it. I think it was brilliant. We had some great
Guys and girls, Jane.
guys and girls. I mean, I could talk about guys being like,
That I'm the
guys and
same, Jane.
girls. Yeah,
That's right.
But
Yeah.
but I mean, it was great. We had lots of stories, and they were enthusiastic. And they got their qualifications a few weeks ago. We went to the Glasgow City Chambers, and yeah, I thought they had some great attitude as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the thing. It's realizing that there are opportunities out there, and I think the good thing about Glasgow City Council offering the opportunity to be able to do that qualification just now is good, because it's something different, from what maybe they have been doing. And you've got some people that maybe been working in, let's say, the bin lorries for a number of years, so they've gained lots of experience and they know job inside out. And health and safety, they know the issues and the risks, because they're living with it, every day on every shift, so they can, when you're talking about it, they can understand and relate to it. So I think that's the beauty of training, isn't that it doesn't just stop when you leave school or go to college, or even in our case, doing an apprenticeship. It should be something that is lifelong, that you should look at. Well, what opportunities are there? Where can I develop? But also, what do I want to do? But also, what does industry need? And I think just now, that's the thing, though, that industry needs people to understand about waste and to be able to be involved in it, though, because there's so many initiatives just now, though, with recycling and reuse as well, though. Like I love them. There's a shop, I won't mention the shop name, though, but there's a shop that I just love their clothes and their dresses and blouses, and they're very, very proud that they use recycled fabrics. Though, so and I think, so looking at what we do, we're at maybe the start of that journey with the waste when it gets put out in the bin or when it's recycled. But then further down that chain, there's the end product. And I think as society, we are getting more responsible, though. So there's lots of opportunities, though. So it's exciting to be part of that and to be able to help people on their journey. I still get apprentices that email me and say, I'm stuck, what do you think I should do? I've been doing this job. Like, had somebody that was been driving just a lorry in the waste for, I think, 6 years since its apprenticeship. And I said, why don't you go and get HGV? So this person went and saved up, got his HGV license himself, and then got a job with a private company, and was there for a year, and then he was headhunted by another company who he went to work for, and he now owns his own business in waste management. And Andrew is in his maybe 30s, mid-30s, but he'd be a good person for you.
Sounds like a perfect guest for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because
one of the things I was going to say there about, because you talked then about people not knowing what happens to their rubbish, and when we were having the discussions and we were having the chat with the guys and girls in the who were looking after the bins and things like that, one of the things they said, and I take out my bin and I make sure everything's in it and put it outside. They were saying that there's so many places where what you get is just like rubbish chucked in a space, and you're supposed to try and pick that up and try and shovel it up or whatever, or you get rubbish or waste where you have to kind of walk up and down stairs and try and get wheelie bins up and down stairs and around closest and things like that. And you look at that and you think, well, that's that's hard, and that's, it's not fair that you should expect somebody to have to do that up and down stairs, or try and collect black bags that have been put outside that have been ripped up by seagulls and things like that. It's not fair that you should have to do that.
Exactly, and I think that's whereby looking at safe ways of working, and so we're quite fortunate in Glasgow City Council that we have unions, a number of unions that we work with and that many of us are members of, and so the unions are good at working with management to look at health and safety, doing health and safety inspections and looking at how we can make work safer for our employees. And because our employees are the most valuable resource we have, that it's not the lorries we have or the buildings, it's the people, and these people, every individual is different and special and matters, and they are the most important resource. And so the council are looking at how we can make work safer and better for our employees, but also for the residents as well. So one of the things that Glasgow's doing just now is that some of the tenement properties that you were saying about the stairs, and particularly spiral stairs, some of them are really, really difficult for our staff to navigate, but also for the householders to navigate, to get down to put the rubbish out. So what they're trialling just now is bin hubs. So rather than the bins be at the back, the bins are out in the street. So they've had to forgo some of the areas where people would normally park their cars, but those are now used for the bins. So the householders take their rubbish out, and it makes it safer for our staff, or not put at the same risk, but also the householders aren't either. So that's an example of how as a council, as an employer, we're looking at making work safer and better, and I think it will continue to get better. I'm confident that things will continue to get better for our employees, because as I say, our employees are the most valuable resource we have. I'm doing just now health and safety training, so we do health and safety kind of refresher training every few years. So that's what I've been doing the last few months with mostly cleansing staff, and I love working with them because hearing some of their stories and their experience as well, and sometimes you just need to maybe remind people, if you thought about doing it this way, or why do you do that, and also when they raise something that maybe isn't, you think, I think that's not right, do you know what I mean? Like, I'll maybe take a note of it, though, do you mean? Like, and just get it, check. Like, sometimes just things get missed, and people, well, we all know we get used to bad habits, don't we? So sometimes they just need to be reminded, of good practice. But yeah.
Brilliant. And I believe there's a nickname to that course, Elspeth, isn't there? Is there not a Glasgow nickname to that course?
I don't know if I can say that online.
Tommy. It's pretty much the DASH course you do, isn't it? I can't remember what that stands for.
Right. Yeah, it's from another local authority. Yeah. So just now it stands for Glasgow Ongoing Safety and Health. Yeah.
Yeah. So you call it GASH.
Yeah.
There you go. So going back to your background, how did you manage to turn 2 days of work experience into a full-time role? And did you ever plan to be in the waste industry, or is this?
So what happened to me? So I came to work in Glasgow when it was the City of Culture in 1990, and I had signed on with I'd been working in London. When you leave school, I'd worked in shops, and when I was 20, I thought, I can go and become famous and make lots of money. So I went to London just when I was 21, and of course it wasn't that. But I got really good experience and I loved it. I wouldn't change it. So I came back from London when I was about 22, 23. Still didn't really know what I wanted to do. Didn't have a driving licence either at the time. So I was looking around, and I was too old for apprenticeships, but I was too young for some other jobs. So registered with a few agencies and ended up in the council for 2 days. And I remember the manager said, there was two of us started, and she said, who likes numbers? And I thought, I do, because I love numbers at school and all. So I went to work in accounts, and the other girl was rolling up posters. So at the end of the 2 days, her job finished. They didn't need her, but the job I was doing, they needed somebody. So I was just lucky, really, that they kept me on. And then after a number of weeks, applied for a job within the council properly, got it, and then I was working in admin kind of reception roles for a number of years, and I had a really good manager, Jim and Nori as well, really good managers. And as part of your personal development, they look at where you want to be, what training do you need, and how can they develop you. So they sent me to do a HNC in business administration. And also then they said, what would you do? And I wanted to do like personnel type thing. So there was a girl already doing that. So I got training. So that was how I ended up with training. And I found something I loved. And then started doing a little bit of training ad hoc for when we had inductions. And then our trainer's job came up in chief executives for the New Deal programme. That was for long-term unemployed. This is about 1998, 99. And I got that job. So I started doing job search. And it was actually people that were working on the MRF, the materials recycling facility at Palmadie. So I was doing their job search and customer service training, and also working with other admin apprentices as well. But that was how I became, and then a job came up in this department that was land services, doing the same job search training, customer service training, and working with apprentices. And then, so initially it was the apprentices we had were all horticulture apprentices. It was all 3-year apprenticeship, and it was parks, and people were going into parks. And that changed about 2014, and then just the money isn't there in local government. They don't have as much money as before, so you have to rationalise and look at where you're spending your money. Whereas waste is essential, we're always going to have waste, and we've got a legal duty to manage it. So that's where the more job opportunities are, and that's where the training has kind of moved over into waste. So there was a few of us that went to Fife College to do our HNC in Sustainable Resource Management. So there was a few of us did that a few years ago. So then we had the qualifications to be able to deliver waste training. So that's how I've come to work in waste. But I very much say to when I'm working with my colleagues, that I'm in training, that I don't have the practical experience that they have, and I really, really recognise that though. So I'm always encouraging them all to, to look at coming into the role I do, because they would be great trainers because they have the practical experience. But that's how I ended up in where I am just now though. So I feel very lucky to have had a career that I've really enjoyed, and I do feel I've made a difference. I feel that just by the fact that the number of people that ex-apprentices that still contact me, and in fact I've had 3 over the weekend that have contacted me, because we've actually got a trainer's job just now. We've got a vacancy at Dildale just now. So I've had 3 people email me separately. I don't know if they all know they've emailed me or they've spoken to each other, but they've 3 people that work for actually another local authority have all contacted me and said, what do you think about this job? Do you think I could do it? And so it's lovely. It's really, really good to know that you're part of something that and make somebody's working life better. And I think that's the thing, because the value you get when you've had a really good day at work, that you're buzzing, aren't you, when you're finished, and you're like, you want to do more. And I just love that, and I think it's contagious. I think attitude is contagious, and when you're passionate about something, I think you can pass that on. But I'm getting older, Alistair, now though, and
you need the young generation to come and take over, Elspeth. That's what we need. That's what we need.
Get younger people in to be able to, so as we can pass on our skills and knowledge to them, so as then we can just gradually drift off into retirement when we're still got some health.
Still got all our faculties.
Yeah.
You mentioned way back at the start of that answer, Elspeth, the Glasgow Garden Festival. And I can't remember if I've ever mentioned this before, but one of my first jobs I ever had was helping to train the 40 or so lifeguards that manned the garden centre. So
Ah,
my mum trained lifeguards. That was her
ah.
job. She trained them from the RLSS, Royal Life Saving Society, and she got the 4-week job to turn these long-term unemployed people into lifeguards, and then they were
Wow.
going to get a job. And we went to a pool in the deepest west end of Glasgow to meet these lifeguards, and most of them had been out of work for long term, which was part of the reason for the garden festival. And my mum was quite an ardent non-smoker, and she turned up there to this room that was filled with cigarette smoke, and she
Well,
was like,
that's it, because people used to be able to smoke inside. That's
that's
right.
exactly. She says,
Oh,
there's no way I'm going to do 4 weeks in this classroom. So she laid down the law to these people that, some wanted to be there, some didn't. But see the difference in these guys by the end of the 4 weeks, because they were getting a physical activity from this, because it was practical as well as classroom based. They were getting the physical activity and so on, and they were like different people at the end of that 4 weeks when they had an opportunity of a job. And I think many of them went into long-term jobs as well.
yeah.
And that was my first sort of experience. I think I was only about 16. I was in summer holiday between
Oh.
school when I did it, so fond memories of that.
Yeah, that's good. And that's, and you've had a part in making a difference, to someone's life. And I think that's the thing about training, that, it's wonderful, to be able to be involved and be able to have a positive impact. Roy Ewing, who's one of the trainers that you'll know at Dowdowdy, the training coordinators, he actually was an apprentice at the Glasgow Garden Festival. So he worked on the Glasgow Garden Festival there. So proudly tells us about all the things and all his good memories. So yeah.
I'm desperately trying to think what year it was. It must have been 1986.
I think it was 19. It was because I was in London when the Garden Festival was on. So I think it was 1988, because I came back in 87, maybe 88, because I came back in 89, and I was actually working for the Glasgow City of Culture, which came in 1990. So that was after the Garden Festival. So it was.
You're right, 1988.
88, was it?
There you go.
Yeah.
So I was 17 when I did that.
Just
so
to
I know exactly. Any really favourite projects you've had through your career? Any ones that really stand out that you think, I would love to be doing that again?
I think just seeing people achieve their qualification, particularly when some of them maybe have a difficulty. And there's one boy that comes to mind. He was very shy. This boy was very shy and didn't particularly stand out. Just okay, not remarkable in any way. Never caused any issues. And so what happened at that group, there was it used to be, we would have 20, 30 people sometimes in a year. And so everybody did basic qualification, a level 2, and then we would have picked some people to go on to do their level 3, but we had to do a kind of test, and obviously you couldn't give everybody the opportunity. Not everybody would want to either. Anyway, this boy wanted to. He wanted to try and better himself, but he didn't get picked. So he was just in the group that were just the level 2. So I was working with them more intensively in job search. And our department have a relationship with the Incorporation of Gardeners, and they would fund a travelling scholarship. So every year we would send a young apprentice to maybe Wisley, the RHS Wisley Gardens one year, the Eden Project. There was Wales, Cardiff City Council one year took people. So they would travelling Botanic Gardens, Edinburgh. So I spoke to this whole group about the opportunity to apply for this. And this boy, I'll use his initials, SK, and there was another boy, CC. The two of them were the only two that put in applications to management, what they wanted to do. And the boy, SK, put in that he wanted to go and work at Rugby. I think it was Rugby. It was Wigan, because their field, they use it between rugby and football, and apparently it's one of the few that's used for both sports. So he wanted to go and learn, because he wanted to be a groundsman, so he wanted to go and learn about this. So I helped him put his application, put an amazing application in, right, even if I say so myself, put it into Billy, and Billy was like, right, okay, well, they can go and work at Scotstoun. And I'm like, but I thought you were going to give him. He goes, well, and I think he was wanting to see how committed he was. So anyway, so this young boy said, okay, I'll do that. So Scotstoun was totally the other end of the city from where he lived. So it was quite a long journey, but he was prepared to, didn't drive either at the time, but was prepared to do it. So he went there initially just for 3 weeks. But he was so interested, genuinely interested, and he wanted to learn about this trade. So when he was there, showed the good attitude, turned up on time, did what was asked of him, asked the relevant questions. That they ended up asking to keep him. So he ended up spending the rest of his apprenticeship there. So he had 18 months there. So by the time he finished, he had really, really good experience in being a groundsman, and they wanted to keep him. But unfortunately, with the budget the way it is in Glasgow, there wasn't any money to be able to for a job. So he had to leave, and he went and got a job in a golf course. Then moved to another golf course. They put him through his level 3 qualification, the sports turf. That boy now works for Rangers at Auchenhowie. He's got his dream job as a groundsman for Rangers because that he's a fan and that's what he really wanted to do. And I think if I was to do anything again, it's seeing that journey. It's it's the opportunity that somebody has. And like, as I say, the Corporation of Gardeners are amazing, and they still do it with them. And I must admit, I was a bit annoyed at the time my boss didn't give him the funding to be able to go to Wigan and do it. But in the way, it worked out better for him anyway, because he's now got a job that he loves and a proper career. And I would say just, doing that is just amazing to be part of it. And anybody listening to this podcast, just remember that, anything is possible, really. Thinking about what do I want? And what I always say to people is visualize, picture yourself, what is your dream? What is your goal? And visualize yourself doing that. Think about what it would be like wearing the uniform, what would it be like working there, what would it be like working with the people, visualize yourself and think about how you're going to do it. And that boy achieved his dream by working hard, getting his driving lessons, getting his driving license as well, and just listening. And also what I do as part of my job as a trainer is I get people to take photographs of their work, so like before and after, and also a couple of photos of them doing it, and then I help them build up a portfolio, so when they're going to interview they can show a range of work that they do, because it's practical work, and it's in leave you can actually, or video as well, it's good. Anyway, this boy SK he was one of the few apprentices. I say this to everybody, but hardly anybody does it. But he was one of the few ones that did it. And he gave me lots of photos. He used to send, because he wasn't that good on the computer. So he would email the photos to me and I put them in a Word document. So that makes me happy, seeing that, he's achieved his dream, though. And yeah, within waste, there's going to be lots of opportunities and lots of jobs, though, because it's an essential service and we all have waste.
Well, I'm hoping we all get somebody like yourself that can help us.
Absolutely. It's all about these career journeys. I keep going on about career journeys. We need more people like yourself, Elspeth, that can help point people towards these career journeys.
Yeah, in the right direction. Yeah. Or I think often it's getting these opportunities, or knowing what the opportunities are and being able to take those. But again, if you're not looking for them, or you don't know where to look,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's right.
What about the worst thing? Have you had any really worst things that have happened to you, or anything that's quite funny that you think, we'll share that one. That's quite a funny one.
No, I don't think anything really funny has ever happened to me at work. Apart from when I was young, I know one of my first jobs when I was like 16, 17, and I worked in a supermarket in Glasgow, and I finished at 3:30. It was 11:30 to 3:30 was my contract, and I went up into the toilets and the changing rooms were in the warehouse of the supermarket. So I went upstairs and went to go to the toilet, and then went into the changing rooms where my locker was. And it said, the door said gents. And I'm like, so totally confused. I went into the toilet, came out, and I thought, what am I going to do? And that way of trying to work out, has that changed the gents? And then I realised it was the two boys and they worked, Alex and, I can't remember the boy's name.
But they just changed the
Not
name
just
on it. Oh
yeah,
no.
no, they took the doors off the hinges. So they took the door off the hinges to the gents and the door off the hinges to the ladies, changed them, swapped them over.
Oh
So of
no.
course, so anyway, so of course, once I opened the doors, I mean, like they were hiding down in the warehouse behind all the boxes and that. I heard them laughing, but oh, it was funny. I mean, like that, you think of the jokes people play on you and the, daft things. But yeah, one of the worst things really that has been, sometimes seeing people not succeed and that and that's frustrating. That's frustrating. And very often it's that people just don't ask for help though. So what I would say to people is that don't worry, there's no problem that can't be fixed. Unless you kill someone, there's no problem that can't be fixed. And don't worry about things though. Do you mean like things never seem as bad as what you think they are going to be? That it's really important to talk to somebody and to speak up. And if you're finding something difficult, speak to somebody you can trust and, see what can be done, because sometimes there's some things we just can't do. Like, for instance, I'm rubbish at putting air in my tyres. I think when I put air in, I take it out though. So I get my son to help me with that. Because sometimes you just got to accept there's some things we just can't do, and we're all good at some things, but we're not good at everything. So know what you're good at and do it.
I think as well, you say know what you're good at, and it's know what other people are good at and be able to bring the best out in other people, isn't it?
That's good, Jane. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good. So we all our vacancies are advertised on My Job Scotland, but also our apprenticeships are advertised on the Glasgow Guarantee website. So I would encourage anybody that's listening to this to register for that. And then they'll be able to see any jobs that come up. They also advertise jobs that come up as well. Sometimes they have some jobs that are ring fenced for people that meet the criteria and are looking for work. But all our apprenticeships are advertised on there, and normally about the springtime. So it's getting people to kind of think about the opportunities that are coming up. Quite often young people don't know where to look. So, it's the parents and their relatives still kind of, looking for them quite often and nudging people, what about this? So and go for the really good jobs. Don't think, oh no, I won't get that, because sometimes there's very few applicants. So sometimes you might actually just be lucky. Don't knock yourself out. Let the company decide that you're not in for it, because I think quite often we're downing ourselves, aren't we? When we don't rate ourselves as good as what we are though. And Alistair, I mean, look, you're a really good example of somebody that's had an ambition from when you were quite young, as you said in your podcast, and you've grown with that, and you've stayed with it, and you've now got a really good reputation for what you do within Scotland. You're very well respected for that. So I would love to be like that.
You are like that, Elspeth. Just lots of people out there don't know about it. That's the thing, is I think that's what we're trying to uncover with the podcast. There's so many good people in the sector out there doing great things, and as a sector we're probably quite poor at joining all these good bits up together. And and I know I've talked to you about the switch stuff before and how we help the training and pathways and all, and there's a huge amount of work there, but as you know, it takes lots of time and effort to do that. So what about moving on to waste management? You're fairly new or relatively new to waste management. Any things that you've changed your habits since you've been involved a bit more with the waste management department? Any things you feel you have to preach the using the right bin message to your friends and neighbours?
I think I'm maybe just more conscious on, I make sure that I separate all my waste, and that we separate properly in the house. And if my boy puts it in the wrong bin, I'm like, oi, because in Glasgow, he worked on the bins for a while in Glasgow, and the bins and the colours are different, aren't they? But they're different colours though, because we live in a different authority. So sort of separate waste. And think about how I can reuse something rather than just put it in the bin. I think, and Liam's actually quite good. He'll be like, well, why don't put that in Gumtree, even for free, rather than just throw it away, because it might do somebody else, So I suppose that's one thing. Yeah, that's one of the things that we do.
Yeah, good. And how do you get away from work? How do you relax?
So, I've got I've got a pussycat. So I love my cat Pops. He's out in the gardens just now. So I'm at home actually today. So
You,
that's
be-
a
you, you
really
bet
nice thing to be
you
able to
better
work
not
at home.
you better not listen to Anna's podcast about skinning cats then.
Oh dear. Yeah, oh no, I love my Pops. So yes, I've got a little cat. I like going swimming, going walking. So yeah, so and also I do support work for people with learning disabilities. So I get a lot of happiness from that. And that helps keep me well as well. I think sometimes you appreciate your own health, freedom and what you're able to do though. So I got a lot of happiness from, from helping those people. Just now at the moment, I just do it one day at the weekends though, but looking to do more of that though, because yeah, it gives me a lot of happiness and joy. That was why I was late coming on the podcast actually. They
That's
were
all right.
round,
Well,
they
no,
were round for a cup of tea.
you don't need to tell everybody you're late, Elspeth. Nobody else knows apart from us.
I know if everybody knows me, I'll be like, oh no. No, I'm always running around at the kids' tail.
Oh, so what about your current role? What are you trying to achieve from that, and what do you see? What do you see next in your career? Do you see you kind of looking? Oh, you were talking earlier about trying to get young people through and retiring. Is that your, how do you
Yeah.
feel it's all
Well,
going to go?
yeah. So Glasgow City Council have lots of work-life balance policies, which are really good though. Looking at what's giving people the opportunity to live the best life and also taking account of that people have changing needs though. So there's different ones that you can take career breaks and you can ask to work reduced hours. So I'd asked to do flexi retirement. So that's when you cut down your hours. And you can do it when you're 55. So I've applied for that. So I've applied again. So I'm hopeful that would, because that would give me a better balance. But also, rather than me just leaving and all the knowledge I've got, I would still be there. So hopefully younger people coming through, like we've got that trainer's job advertised just now. So, somebody newer coming in, then I can pass on, my knowledge to them. So just as somebody did with me, years ago, that we used to have Billy Kenny and Fiona Wallace working with us, and I learned a lot of what I know from training from them. So yeah, I'm keen to do that, because I think that's the thing. It's not to just lose all the knowledge, and because I've been there for so long, and I sometimes think, if I don't really, because I'm not as sharp and I'm not as just on it as much as I was but that happens when you get older, doesn't it? And
I would go
health
for that.
conditions, you're not those. So that's why, we need, younger people to come in, that to be able to bridge that gap. Yeah. So that's what I'm hoping for those. So yeah. So if anybody goes on to My Job Scotland and applies for that job, we've got that job up just now. Yeah, the training instructor. Yeah, you'll be working with me.
Sounds like they'll have a great mentor if they apply for that job. That's all I can
Well,
say.
do you know, I was just saying that there's so many places that seem to be, they're losing senior staff that have got all the knowledge and the experience and not actually share it. It's so important to share all that knowledge and experience, isn't it? Because, if you've been working on it in there for so many years, you know what works or what doesn't, or, that kind of thing. So is there a fact that you might want to share about your job or sector, which people may not know? So, perhaps something that would encourage them to come in and take your job, Elspeth. Is there something there that you want to share?
I think what I would just say is like it's such an amazing experience being able to help people. Like with that young person I was talking about, SK, that he's just one example of somebody that I've worked with, because it must be over 1,000 people that I've worked with over the years. Though, so but he's just one example of somebody that, you know, now I would say is, because I follow, he's on my Facebook page though, so that's the only way you feel like you live people, you know, people's lives, don't you, through what's on Facebook, but you keep up, don't you, with what's happening in their, you know, what's happening with another child being born, or what's happened in their lives. And I just, that gives me great joy to see that he's doing a job that he really loves. And you know, and I think I was a little part of that journey though. So, and I think that's the thing when you're in a trainer's role, that you've got the opportunity to be able to inspire and motivate. And also really important to make sure that people are doing the job the right way, the correct way, because that's the health and safety training we've been doing recently has lots of different bits in it. Like it's about customer service, and you know, about how you're dealing with awkward situations, and that sometimes people just need to be reminded about, you know, what the right way is to do it, and also how would you deal with something, you know. So yeah, so I would say, you know, come and do it, because you know, I've loved doing it. That I would recommend it to other people. It's hard and it can be really challenging at times. You know, there's some of the people we get through, some of the learners maybe have a lot of different support needs now, and I would say that I think we're better as society now at looking at people with disabilities and how do we help them. But like recently, one of my colleagues was doing interviews for a job, an apprenticeship in our department, and the outstanding candidate, the best candidate, was somebody that has a disability, but his disability for this job is he's autistic, so he's very, you know, it has to be like this, everything has to be in this and in a box, and very, very organised, but really good at spreadsheets and very focused, and his hobby is in the line that where the job is. So his disability in this instance is actually a particular special ability that, you know, that makes him particularly good for that. And that gives me great joy to see that happen, because that's the way it should be. And I think everybody's got something, you know, even maybe when they're young, they're quite healthy, and that everybody has something they struggle with though. But don't ever look at, you know, that as if, you know, that's going to stop you from, you know, achieving. It's just looking at how you can use it and how you can work with it. So yeah, so there's it's different. It's different times though, do you mean? But it's really rewarding to be involved and to be able to make a difference to people's lives.
That's brilliant, Elspeth. You know, I know from working with you previously, you know, some of the people you're dealing with have often got quite difficult backgrounds as well, like family life and so on. That makes it, you know, almost getting them to turn up at the right time is in some cases quite challenging for them. So
yeah, definitely. And that's the thing, none of us know what, you know, somebody's facing, you know, and you know what kind of you know what they've left when they come out the house that morning. You know that we had one boy that was his mum was an alcoholic, and so he had to look after his sister, and eventually moved out into his own flat when he was 16. It's just a studio flat, but he paid for that all himself, and it wasn't until second year we were talking one day, and I found out that he lived in a flat on his own, and I was like totally astonished. And turned out if you were an apprentice, you could get a reduction in housing benefit, not housing, council tax, rather than pay 75% council tax, you just to pay 50%. So so anyway, I said I said to him, so it saved him like, you know, £20 a month. It wasn't loads, but it was something. But I was like, this boy, he never ever let on that he had all that to deal with. He just got on with it. You know, so yeah, there's you don't know what some people are having to deal with, and you know, so it's really important to take time. And I think that's, even as a trainer, it's really important to take time and to, you know, to listen and to you know, to look at how you can get the best, you know, for each person though. So even though if you're dealing with big groups, that you sometimes have to be, you know, look at the individual, because it's a human being. Everybody is a human being, an individual, and matter.
Great. Okay, we're getting near the end here, Elspeth. We always ask guests for their favourite bit of slang or dialect, and I'm sure, working and living in Glasgow, you've got plenty of bits of dialect, and you've actually used a few already. So,
Well,
any
have
any favourites? I can't remember which one you used actually. I noticed it and never wrote it down, and I've forgotten. So, we'll need to
I
listen
know
back.
there's maybe phrases that I use that I don't even realise, because that's the thing, you just kind of, you get, I can't think of any favourite slang that I love saying congratulations. So even like modern apprenticeship certificates come in last week, and I was like, oh, like, because it's a big thing, when that's like the wrapping up the apprenticeship, and that's them achieved, that's their final trade papers though. So yeah, that's a lovely thing to say, congratulations, or when somebody gets a job, that's good, because you think, yeah, that's what that's what it was all about.
Yeah, good. And then we also give guests a magic wand to resolve some issue in the big bad world of waste, or the big bad world you work in. What would you like to use it for?
To make everything safe and for nobody to be injured. Because, well, Alistair, obviously working within the waste industry, that the injuries that happen, and some of them awful, but which are few, fortunately, but even sometimes some of the ones that, if somebody slips, and it could be life-changing, like, with that's why I always, when I'm doing the health and safety training, say to people, you only get one life and you only get one back. That you have to be selfish and have to stop sometimes and think, can I do that? So yeah, if my magic wand, it would be that, for safety, that nobody would be hurt. So I'm passionate about safety, actually, and keeping people as safe and as well as we can be.
Good. I think everybody should be. I mean,
Yeah.
you hear a lot of stories where people say, oh yeah, my manager said I have to do this, and let's do it, and I can't do it because of this, that, and the other. And you're like, well, don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't do it, if it's going to make you, if it's not safe, then just don't do it.
That's right. And what I say to people is, even though, so that Alistair might be able to do it, but that doesn't mean necessarily I can do it. And that's a decision that each individual has to take. That, can I do this as a thief? Can I do it? Or it might have been I could have done it before, but I can't do it today, or I can't do it now because
I could have done it 20 years ago. But
yeah. Like my health is, as I've had a couple of quite big health things in recent years, and I just know that my ability isn't as good, even with driving. I can't do as much as I could before, so I just have to take that decision that to limit what I do, though. That's the sensible thing for my safety, but also for others as well, not to cause a problem, or for someone else, though. So yeah, safety is so important. And employers, and as I say, Glasgow City Council, we have the unions that help assist, though, because I think a lot of people think unions are just there if you're in trouble and speak up for you in front of management, but they're not, though. Unions do a lot of other things. And I'm a rep just recently, in recent years, though when unions make the work a safer place to be, though. So I would also encourage people to maybe look at, if they're not involved in union, maybe becoming like a safety rep, or we've got environmental reps that champion things, equalities reps, that there's lots of opportunities there, though. So it's just, there's within waste, there's lots of opportunities for people, and I think there's going to be more, though. And I think because I think as a country we are quite responsible, and I think we want to do the right thing. So yeah, I think there's, I think it's a growing industry, let's say.
Yeah, the kind of last question we've got, and I think you've kind of gone through it a lot of times already, but what advice would you like to give to the younger generation coming into the sector? If there's one thing that, out of everything we've talked about that really sticks out, what would you say to somebody trying to come into the industry?
just to always turn up at your work on time. And if there's a problem, speak to someone, be honest and speak to someone, because there's no problem that can't be sorted. But just turn up and show willing. That's the most important thing. You can't teach that. So for young people, there's that can be sometimes an issue, that they're like, they don't want to do it, or maybe they've not had to, so but that's really important.
I would say that is, isn't it? It's showing that you've got some commitment, and actually getting up early and getting to work on time shouldn't be such a big thing.
Yeah, I know you would think that though, but not everybody is like us, and sometimes some people, maybe they've come from a background like, or a lot of their friends aren't working and the family don't work, so they just think that's the way it is though. So turning up is really important, and also if they've got a problem saying, but also to take some responsibility. Like driving lessons, for instance, it always costs a lot of money. I mean, when I learned to drive, it was 30 years ago, and it was like £15 a lesson, which is probably the equivalent of £50 now. That it's still expensive, but it's something you invest in yourself, and it's a skill that is useful. So don't expect people to come and do it for you. You have to put something in and commit. And if you're investing in yourself, though.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that.
That's great, Elspeth. I think that's us exhausted our extensive list of questions. I knew having you on would be fascinating, and I think the chat we've had today has been great from getting people into the industry, and the support you guys give to the both the employees and the apprenticeships is great. And I think the benefit, I've known you for quite a while, and the benefit you've got at Glasgow is you've got a big workforce. You've got quite a substantial workforce, whereas some other authorities don't quite have as many. But there's huge opportunities to combine resources and things like what you're trying to do in terms of let's not all do it ourselves and do individual things. There's things like Switch where we're trying to do these things collaboratively across the sector, and that's really important. Yeah. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
That's all right. So thank you and goodbye.
Okay, it was lovely to see you. Okay, cheerio. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
In the heart of air where the echoes ring, there's a place that fights the chaos out beyond and sings. They're the warriors for the earth, fighting every day. An environmental consultancy leading the way. They train the fighters, they sharpen the blades, battling the waste that pollutes and degrades. With knowledge as their weapon, they educate and train. I'll be on environmental, breaking the chain. From the mountains to the seas, they spread the call, aiming for a future where the world will not fall. With sustainability as their creed, they march on. I'll be on environmental.